Recording. There we go.
Okay, so we are MetaLeX. We are a venture-backed team of developers and lawyers designing hybrid law, tech, and governance solutions. And today we are demoing a fully complete TPP request grant administration solution with both on-chain and web app components included, which is running on the ZKSync testnet now.
Nice.
So this already works with the ZK token and with the ZK cap minters, and we will actually be deploying contracts to testnet during this demonstration.
Nice. Excellent.
Most of that code is already audited. We did have to make a few ZKSync specific adaptations, so those aren't audited, but everything else is audited. And what this showcases is a set of technologies that we have. This includes MetaLeX OS for BORGs or safes, a system of smart contracts called MetaVest for token vesting, token unlocking, token milestone, token options, all that sort of thing, and another set of technologies that we call Ricardian triplers, which are for on-chain agreements. And these are very, very configurable. So we'll be showing you one configuration that we think makes sense for your use case, but there's a lot of other potential implementations we could do, just FYI.
Great.
The initial implementation assumes that you may want to do some combination of vesting, unlocking. So vesting is earning, unlocking is becoming transferable over time, as well as milestones for specific deliverables, using potentially both objective and subjective oracles. That you want to use the ZK capped minter for that, to have a just-in-time minting model rather than doing a grant type of thing. We assume that grantees or prospective program administrators will self-propose TPPs to the token assembly, and that all necessary arrangements, including legal, the vesting smart contracts, everything should be fully pre-prepped for the token assembly's approval, so that token assembly voting is the last step, and then everything is ready to go at that point.
Great.
This also assumes that there is at least one BORG or safe in the ZKSync ecosystem that will be involved in signing off on subjective milestones, like whether some set of code was delivered according to spec, and that this power would be exercised on chain through our smart contracts.
Great. Wonderful.
I'll also flag, although this isn't showcased in the demo itself as such, but I did want to mention, and maybe we could discuss it more at the end, that our solution also solves many of the so-called limitations that you've identified with the ZK Minter V1, and we're considering adding to a V2 token minter. That includes the ability to terminate or pause a capped minter without token assembly approval. That includes transferability of admin roles, having on-chain and off-chain conditions to minting, rate limitations, the ability to add veto power over vests, unlocks, and milestones, and expiration dates.
Great.
So the way our web app here works is there are different sort of user experiences for different roles. So here we have basically 3 or 3.5. 1.5 is a grantee or token program administrator, both in the state where they've gotten it approved and when they're thinking about proposing it and getting it approved. The other one is the DAO, like a DAO member, and the other one is a BORG member.
Okay. Great.
And so we'll be switching through these views as we go. So the first view here is kind of like a public view of just like, this would be the idea would be, this is a TPP grants hub, right? So it's showing grants that have been given. It's linking to docs that explain things. And then there's this button, apply for a grant. And so now we're kind of in the viewpoint of a prospective grant recipient, TPP
Yep.
recipient. And the idea here is that we would have them fill out in the final state absolutely everything that's needed for the proposal. So we could customize this and so on. But the cool part, and he'll add his recipient address, but the cool part here is the vesting schedule.
Oh,
right?
this is brilliant. Yeah. So basically now, in terms of kind of when you're applying for a grant, you're specifying not just kind of like the total amount, but you're actually creating a pre-commitment to kind of like what the disbursement schedule actually looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this can have either vesting, that is earning, or unlocking, that is transferability limits, or both. And the idea here would be something is not mintable unless it's both vested and unlocked.
And unlocked. Yeah. And that's really cool because that kind of creates it creates a very interesting dynamic. What's kind of interesting about this is so for the minting contract, one question here, who actually owns the admin of that contract in the interim? Like, before the tokens are minted, who's the admin?
We'll get to that, but it's actually the MetaVest contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you have middleware basically that is as the admin. Okay, great, excellent.
And that's very configurable as well, but we can get more into that. And so this can also have cliffs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then there also is the power to add milestone-based token owning. I'll wait for Gray Pixel to catch up to us. Here, we're just going to assume vesting and unlock are the same for purposes.
Yeah. And it's quite cool because something that's really interesting about this is you're actually not relying on a custody provider.
That's right.
So like typically you rely on Anchorage or Toku or Coinbase to basically hold these tokens in a sort of stewardship. But when we talk about the token assembly itself, you can't spin up a new Anchorage account, right?
Yes.
Or whatever it is. So you want some sort of like pseudo custody agreement, some pseudo escrow, which this middleware functions.
Exactly.
Okay, great, excellent.
And so we can propose a milestone. This, you could imagine walking people through a process here to have more precise terms and stuff like that. And we are assuming this is a subjective milestone, and so ultimately it will require some kind of TPP
signature. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Gray Pixel, do you want to move us to the next?
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
Okay, and so here is the Ricardine tripler. So this is our agreement technology, and the cool thing about this is, like, if you're doing some sort of, well, number one, it doesn't involve DocuSign or anything else, so you can sign an agreement purely on chain. We would structure the agreement so that it can just be signed by the proposer, but it still have either the Borg or the token assembly or some other persons as counterparties. They don't have to sign. You would fill in various information. But the cool thing about this is it's very important that the legal terms match the on-chain terms. So we actually deploy everything in a single step when you sign the agreement. So basically what happens when you sign the agreement is all of the following. The legal agreement is signed and that signature is recorded on chain. A MetaVest contract is deployed, and this is actually going to happen when we click this. It will actually get deployed on testnet, and that's basically ownerless, but it has some optional permissions for Borgs or safes or the token assembly, however you want to configure it to do certain things like termination or whatever. A cap ZK minter with the MetaVest contract as its owner. And that MetaVest contract, that minter obviously will not yet have the capability to mint because the token proposal hasn't been approved yet. The proposal itself, this doesn't happen in this current version, but in the ideal case, we would also deploy the TPP proposal to the assembly in the same step. And then it would all be kind of set up and teed up for the token assembly.
Yeah, and as soon as the token assembly passes the minter roll to the cap minter, then all of this kind of like flows through. So basically, you're creating a pretty you're kind of entangling the proposal creation with the vesting contracts,
Yes.
with the off-chain contracts.
Yeah.
And then you're making sure that there's consistency across all of it.
Yes.
Which is quite cool because, you know, if we think about proposals in general and we start thinking about like classifying them in terms of levels of guaranteed accountabilities, then when you do this, assuming the contract is good, right? But you have kind of like a AAA rating in terms of the accountability because you're like, it's not just a minter. Like, for example, in the Ignite program, it's a minter and you got to trust that the steer code doesn't mint the tokens and,
Exactly.
you know, run away.
Yeah.
There, we do have legal contracts with GPS, which provides another layer, but that layer of accountability didn't exist at the point that the proposal was passed.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
if all those contracts existed at the point of execution, then the proposal would have been like, you know, a A+ rating or, you know, a AA rating. Versus when you don't have that, then you might be, this is a B rating because we trust the people in it, but we don't actually have all the pieces in place at the time.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, we try to put everything on chain.
Yeah.
So Ed, go ahead and click through.
Yeah, just so you know, what you can't see here is my sign window. So I'm actually signing a transaction here, but if I click sign and confirm, I go through.
Cool. And so now this next screen is basically showing us, again, still with the grantees.
Yeah. So basically now you have everything except the permission to mint.
That's right. And so we can go and simulate the DAO approval. We just kind of did a dummy for purpose of this.
Yeah, all good.
And then you're going to see, okay, now it changes. And now you can see, okay, you've already started vesting in some, right?
Yeah.
And you could potentially go and mint that. And now there is, and it will show the curves and stuff like that if it's vesting over time.
Yeah.
And then we have a request sign off button. So the idea here would be they've gone and done some work. They've completed some code that meets some spec that was in the original proposal. And now they want to ask the Borg, hey, pay me, I've done it. And so they can request the sign off. And so now we switch to the Borg view. Oh, wait, something. Yeah, now we switch to the point of view of a Borg member.
Which now you can verify the first milestone and whether you want to like review.
Exactly. We assume here one member, so you know we could just approve it with one click. And a cool thing here, we added some other features to this view, including like a view of all the past mints. So this is showing all the mints we've actually done on testnet. All the minters we've deployed on testnet, I should say.
Yeah, this is brilliant. This is really good. One question that I have, can you obviously this is, you know, this is excellent. This already like solves a shit ton of problems. Just out of curiosity, can I top up a contract? Can I deploy another cap minter to the same framework, or do you need to like deploy an entire new like stack?
That's a very good question. Michael?
So think about it this way. Let's say you had a successful program, right? So you have a curve, and let's say we had a specific program which had specific milestones and specific payouts, and we're like, okay, this is awesome. We want to basically run this program again, right? There are two different ways to run this program again. One, you can deploy the entire full stack, right? Or two, you can kind of like pour more money into the pipe, like run this again. I think from what I understand here, we just deploy the full stack again. But I was just kind of curious of how the structure kind of works.
Yeah, so it's an interesting, the way it's set up right now, there's just one capped minter, and the way that the ZK capped minter works as written is it's a hard cap.
Yeah. Okay,
and
perfect.
So, but to add
that,
something extensible is really not, it's really not that big of a challenge, and like, our contracts, it doesn't matter where the token source is coming from. So it would just be a matter of being able to add a new cap minter.
Yeah, what's kind of interesting. So the other thing that this is really powerful for, which is it's not even at the level of the top level proposal, but actually one level down. So let's say I create a program, let's say to pay out specific milestones for ZK chains or whatever growth milestone to like Lens, for example. Say like if you hit a billion, guaranteed active unique users or whatnot, we'll give you like whatever 5 million tokens or I don't know. That's probably not enough for a billion users, but you get the idea. And so it's kind of interesting because the top program may have 100 million tokens. The Lens milestone has 5 million, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things that I asked Scopelift to build out in the next iteration of the cap minter was this concept of nested cap minters. So like we can use a stack that you're described here at 2 different levels. We can do it full stack at the approved proposal level, which is great, but also you can use it 1 level down. So let's say you have a vesting curve for a specific program. Let's say we're going to spend 10 million tokens per month to allocate builder grants, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And now people can apply for grants, but to the program, not to the top level, to the
Right,
ZK
right.
DAO. They can use the same stack to apply for grants at the program level.
Yep.
And now you don't need to build any of the infra at the program level because they just apply for grants here.
Well,
And-
I mean, a BORG, yeah, I mean, obviously there's many ways you could do that. You could introduce things into the minter. You also could just do that through a BORG, right? You could apply like rate limitations through a BORG, or you could like deploy multiple MetaVests from a BORG. So yeah, we could also, yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is that this nests. You can
Mhm.
have like a top level contract
Yes.
that basically vests into a lower level contract. So you have this fractalization that it's like subborgs of subborgs of
Mhm.
subborgs,
Exactly.
which is really powerful because we can think about deploying one top level contract which has one top level team, let's say a specific steer co that has access to certain rate limited funds, but it's not to pay the steer co, right? That's a different contract, but it's
Right.
to have access to those funds. And now you can create a set of subcontracts for each of the programs themselves.
Exactly. Yep. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure Michael would have a fun time building all that.
Yeah. But
yeah.
this is really good. I need to go back and think about, so I have a bit of a proposal pipeline for next year, and like I try to figure out like sooner rather than later, like where we can put this tech and
Mhm.
like start using it.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is great.
That'd be dope. And so then the next, so now the approval has been granted by the BORG. The recipient will confirm they want to receive it, and you'll see the amount that they can claim has been updated because they met their milestone.
Yeah.
And I'm just claiming it now. Sorry, you can't see that because there's no loading.
One question for the claim. This is really great. The user has to click the button, right?
Yes.
So until the user clicks the button, like I mean, I don't know, it depends on the tax laws that you would argue, but I think my understanding would be, at least for example, under some jurisdictions, which I've done some research on, the assets don't exist, they haven't been minted. Therefore, I have a non-transferable right which can't be sold, so it's not an asset. So like it'll be taxed at the point of when I hit claim. which is when the assets actually hit my wallet. And
Yeah, the way the legal agreement is structured will also, play into the optics around this, right? But yeah, most likely you would have the income event when you actually claim, but probably my colleague Alex is not on the phone. He's a tax attorney. We could probably do an analysis on that and figure out, what's optimal. I will say there is a certain tax strategy that is somewhat obstructed by the ZK Minter approach, which is what's called, sort of restricted tokens, right? The idea that even though something may be transfer restricted, because you expect its price to appreciate over the transfer restriction period, you want to front load your income event.
Yeah.
And the fact that minting doesn't happen until it's both vested and unlocked could interfere with that particular tax strategy.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you want to, like a tax lawyer would tell you, if you want to be really, really certain that you don't have an income event until you make some certain decision, the best way to do that is to have an exercise price and to actually have to pay something in. And our software accommodates that as well. You can set an exercise price. That is the safest. If you truly want to defer your income event and want to be absolutely certain you're doing that, that is the safest way. And in theory, you could set it very low, and it could still have the effect.
One thing, the other thing that's kind of, so this is really interesting because it opens up a lot of these conversations on like what can be done. So I'll bike shed for a small second and say one thing that users I have seen often want is claim to specific address. So I may have the signing rights to hit the claim button, but I may not want the tokens to go into my primary wallet. I want to go to another person or another vendor that I worked with,
right,
so that like they technically never hit my wallet.
And we should add that. We should add that.
Never an asset that I actually own.
Yeah, that could definitely factor into a tax strategy, or
Well, it might go into an escrow account. It might go to like, you can imagine a program, for example, where you claim to a different vendor. So a different vendor completes their work, and like you're claiming to that specific vendor, so you don't have basically control of the assets at any specific point. You only have
that's a really good.
You only have a valve that you open and close, and you point the pipe to like where it goes.
Yeah, that's really
that's a really good thought, and it's really easy to implement. I'm thinking we definitely want that on our mainnet version too.
Yeah. It's basically defined, like it's assigned a specific recipient, right?
Yeah, so that's the demo. And happy to. I mean, we've kind of been discussing some details along the way, but happy to talk about it. Happy to talk about like the other ways we could configure it, or anything you might be curious about.
Right. Let's pause the recording and we can talk about a couple other details now.
6.
And this just